doing our best. We're learning as we go. So made a boo-boo, and the boys did warn me of this, and I thought, no, it won't be that bad. Made a little bit of a mess. Oops. Sorry, guys. We got day 2 of fertilizer and seed spreading. Today, new fields, my fields, over at my farm. We have 57 acres that we are applying. Just getting started here. It's 3:30 and hotter than snot. 82 degrees on April. What do we got? April 14th. So that's a pretty warm one out here early. But they're talking a chance for snow this weekend. Believe it or not. They're hoping to get some better growth out of this. I did not fertilize last year and noticed quite a big difference just in production. Did not get nearly as much off of it as I had wanted or anticipated. So, trying to kind of counteract that, but we'll see. We're trying stuff, seeing what's working, what's not working. Second time actually using one of these spreader carts. I think depending on the order of the videos we've got, you'll see the first time that we did last night, kind of our trial run on the piece that we're running out west of here. The biggest thing that I'm trying to figure out with this cart is learning the spread pattern and how wide it is. It's not really a right or wrong. You kind of say 50 feet, it's spreading 50 feet, so you're guessing as you're running, and trying to not hit every bump in the field. Doing our best. We're learning as we go. So made a boo-boo, and the boys did warn me of this, and I thought, no, it won't be that bad. But there's a bit of a wet spot out in this field, and I didn't think it was going to be quite that wet. However, made a little bit of a mess. Oops. Sorry, guys. So speaking of making a mess, one thing to note, and I don't remember if I mentioned it before, but this tote, this seed cart, whatever, I'm gonna get yelled at for calling it the wrong thing, but this hopper, whatever, the spreader is still almost full. It started with 12,000 pounds of seed and fertilizer mixture. So she's a little heavy. Probably the problem. Oh well, note to self. All right, back in the cab, getting started on the next field. So one of the reasons I hemmed and hawed and decided to give that wet spot a shot was actually based on the weight of this cart. We're figuring out how it's pushing this tractor around. We're in a John Deere 6130R, 2021 6130R, and I've had times, even pulling the disc bind, that it sort of pushes the tractor around a bit, and that disc bind does not weigh nearly as much as what this does behind us. So one of the concerns was, with the amount of hills that we have here in my head, did not want to get in a situation with a fully loaded cart behind me or fully loaded spreader, sorry, that it was going to push me around on the hills or potentially cause a hazard from that aspect. So we're getting the next one started. It's even wet down here at the base of this hill. Oh, kicking into four-wheel. I wish I could do a better job of showing kind of the terrain that we're working with here, but around this pond, it's pitched in all directions, and you might be able to tell from the video sort of just how much we're working with. Ooh, makes you pucker here and there. Hopefully this goes okay. We'll find out. So one thing you'll notice from this property, my property, these fields are rough. One thing we had talked about doing was trying to get in here and flatten them out a bit. We had a debate in fall as to, do we keep running hay ground, or do we look to turn this over and put beans or winter wheat or some, another crop in here to try to get in here and work the fields. The reason for them being so rough, this actually used to be a pretty big equestrian farm. All of this was pasture, it was fenced in, and I believe at one point there was close to 100 horses that were kept on the property, both in the stables, in these buildings, and then out here moved around throughout the year. So it was a fairly decent sized horse facility, and from my understanding it was a pretty nice one, and now we're here and we're farming it. So that's some of the reason for the rough terrain that we've got going on around here. Hopefully one of these times we'll get in, turn it up. I'm not sure we'll do it this year now that we're putting, you know, like I said, we're putting a bunch of inputs into this hay ground. I'm not sure how much I want to put into the fall. We'll have to see how the haying season goes. If we have a good crop, maybe we'll stick with it, or maybe we'll have the funds to be able to turn it over and do something different in here. So it's a guessing game. That's what I'm figuring out. So one of the other things we've got to check on is sort of that spacing that we talked about before. You know, I said obviously being new and only day 2 running the spreader, still trying to learn that spacing. That one is a 50-foot spreader. It's going to cast out 50 feet. So what we want to do is get out and check. And this is something that I learned last night, but we're going to check and kind of count the spacing out. So you can see, I'm not sure how well you can see it, but here's my track. So in theory, center line to center line of the track should be roughly 50 feet. So we'll just kind of pace this out. So we're a little closer to 60 feet. Now the other thing we can do is kind of look for the cast and the spread of it. Do we get coverage throughout? You know, we can still see some down in the grass here. Still seeing some here, decent amount. Kind of looking, there's some in this area. Kind of taking a look here. I'm not seeing a lot. Here's a grouping. So, you know, maybe we are getting halfway decent spread, especially because we are so close to that other track. Looks like we might be making it. Maybe the wind is helping us out a little bit. So just something to take note of, trying to look, count, make sure that you're actually getting coverage, not that you're wasting or you're going to have stripes in your fields. So as I mentioned today, we're in 57 acres of hay ground, interseeding. We're spreading out, casting out with this fertilizer. We're casting out some timothy, hoping that we can get some thicker growth this year, better production. Also timothy, you know, we're more in the market and trying to sell hay bales to horse customers. The small squares definitely is our market, and we've got some equipment, small square balers, as well as other attachments and implements to be able to aid us in doing it more efficiently. So we get a little preview of those in the future here, but I guess what I was getting at is we're getting in the fields early. It's hot today. It's been hot this week, but it looks like this weekend it should be cooling off, hoping for some rain. So we quickly got seed and fertilizer here so that we could get out into the fields late this week. Like I said, it's Friday, tomorrow, Saturday, hoping for that rain to be able to allow that seed and fertilizer to really, with the rain, be more effective. I believe 2 years ago I had tried doing some fertilizer, hired it out, maybe it was 3 years ago now, and by the time they came and spread the fertilizer, it didn't rain for 2 or 3 weeks. It didn't necessarily see quite the full potential that it would have had otherwise. So hoping we can take advantage, like I said, of that weather that's coming, and see some better use of yields. So the other thing that we're doing here, and it's harder to show in the cab, but one of the things I should say that I learned last night was sort of the best way to run these fields. So especially when spreading, as well as cutting, it's sort of the same thing, but running the headlands, which are your outer rows of your fields. What that's going to do for us here is when I'm making these turns on the ends of the fields, there's a little bit of overlap on those ends. If we didn't hit those headlands first, we might see an area that wouldn't get cast on, would be left bare. So by hitting those headlands first and really trying to, you know, do those outer rings, it'll allow us to get better coverage, get fuller coverage. Yes, there's going to be some more overlap. However, I'd rather have some overlap than not. especially on my field. So hopefully we can show an aerial map in the video here, but these are all odd shaped. Most of our fields are all oddly shaped. They're not square. So to get full coverage and to be able to get everything spread out decently, we have to hit those headlands for, again, you can see an aerial view, obvious reasons. So one thing we want to do quick is lock this chain up here. So this drive wheel is what controls the belt, this belt that feeds the fertilizer back through the cart to the spinner. Feeds through, dumps out. Spinner is controlled by the PTO. So as you drive and as your speed varies, this wheel will drive the belt underneath to feed the spinner. So if we're going down the road, we want to make sure we lock this up to prevent it from accidentally coming down, hitting this tire, and leaving all of our product on the road behind us. All right, so we got this side of the farm done. It's roughly 18 acres of hay ground, so let's hope that there's a whole bunch of seed and fertilizer left in here. And yeah, there's a lot left. So I'm guessing we got about 30 acres. I shouldn't say guessing. We do have about 30 acres on the backside, so I shouldn't say that. Actually, it's more. What do we got? My big field, the biggest field, is about 30 acres itself, plus, yeah, closer to 40. So we got about 40 acres on the other side. We're gonna do a little trucking down the road. So we've made it to this bigger, more important field. We had planted hay in this, I'm guessing it was 4 years ago, 5 years ago now, when my grandparents first moved in. This actually used to be all corn. We had the neighbor roll it flat. He had been running it, neighbor over here, had been running it, had the corn in here, and we decided we wanted to run some hay. So rolled it flat, had the co-op come in, seed it, fertilize it, and it just has not really taken off the way that I have wanted it to. It does not have the production that a lot of the other fields have. So hopefully this seed and fertilizer we've got going on here is going to help remedy that. We will find out. So we're coming up on the hilliest section of field. It is definitely it's definitely going to be a bit challenging. So at least we saved it for last when the cart is the lightest. Field, and we're just taking a peek inside to see what's left. There's actually a Pheromone, so I think what we're going to do is waste the rest of it out on this big field. This is the field that, like I said, we planted a few years ago and was less productive than what I'd like to see. So you can see that there is some in here already, a decent amount. However, yeah, we'll find a spot that looks like there's a wider pass. Actually, this row here seems to be a little extra wide, so we're guessing as we're coming through, might as well, we'll split the difference, fill this row in and keep going the rest of the field.